congregations. We have actually started seeing a need for cohorts. And so we have been in the process of forming cohorts. And so our Christian formation area, in partnership with the Association of Presbyterian Church Educators and the Presbyterian Youth Workers Association, has started about 8 cohorts that have all completely filled up. And so now we're looking at, so how do we start 8 more? And one of them is around best practices in Christian education. Another one at best practices in youth ministry. Another one is a cohort for LGBTQ youth. Another is a cohort for people of color who are doing Christian education in churches. Another one is a cohort for white people who want to be better allies with this dismantling structural racism. So we keep working in these areas. We've also, through the pandemic, developed a new evangelism resource called 8 Habits of Evangelism that we finally now have on our evangelism page. And basically is looking at evangelism in terms of its connection to discipleship and justice. And what are the habits that take us more deeply into our relationship with God and one another in the faith community and people in our neighborhoods as we're doing justice and mission in the world. One of the things that's excited me, and then I'm going to be quiet, is just working with congregations by Zoom. I've had to learn how to do this, how to do training by Zoom, and it's not my first nature. And just to admit, I don't like it. I much prefer to be in person, but I've learned to figure this out, sort of. But a part of what I've experienced is churches really beginning to do well in the midst of this pandemic. And we have one of our new worshiping communities that's in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's the Parkside Church. And Colin Kerr is the pastor. And they actually started their new worshiping community about maybe 4 months before the pandemic hit. And it was like when the pandemic hit, it was like, do we quit? What do we do? And so this core group that had gathered said, okay, let's just figure this out. So they figured out how to do virtual worship. They figured out how to do virtual fellowship, community events. And in the midst of all this, what they started doing was anytime someone would like a service or like an event, they would respond to them. They would send them a message and they would say, would you like to talk more? And to their surprise, people said yes. And so Colin and other leaders started meeting with people virtually. And as Colin got fully vaccinated and others were fully vaccinated, then they would meet in person, but still practice physical distancing and all the safe kinds of things you need to do in the midst of a pandemic. And they started hearing stories from people about why they were drawn to this church, being in the Bible Belt. That, oh my goodness, we found a church that went to all people. And we didn't know that there was one like this that existed. And so we want to know more. We want to get involved. And we didn't know there was a church that cared about dismantling racism. We didn't know that was gospel. We want to get involved. And so they just had those conversations. And over this year, when they thought they were going to have to quit, they received 30 new people into this new worshiping community. And so that for me is just hopeful. And it was just a matter of figuring out, do virtual worship and figuring out virtual fellowship gatherings. And then when people started liking or they would ask a question, following up with a message. Would you like to know more? Would you like to get any hope? I believe our church, y'all, is poised to make a difference unlike we've ever been poised to make a difference, because I believe this vision that we have is timely, and I believe our country needs it. And I can't even get into all the mess that we're in as a country, but I believe that we can address it and speak the truth, and speak the truth with love and power and courage. So thanks for being partners in the gospel, and I'll be quiet and see what kind of questions you have with what I've just said.
Ray, the new worshiping community that you mentioned just a moment ago, what was their focus as a new worshiping community?
Their focus has been several things. One is they really wanted to help people grow in their faith. And they really wanted to reach people in Charleston, South Carolina, who had either given up on church or just never thought that church was even on their radar. And so they knew that to do that, they needed to be involved in the community. So justice was very important. So it was this combination of justice and discipleship of this kind of lifelong faith formation was where they started.
So
Hey,
evangelism is a big part of your focus as director. So what other evangelism stories do you have to tell that you've seen in your tenure?
I've got more. Greg had his hand up. I was gonna see what he had to say.
Just a quick question. You had mentioned trying to help people understand how to do hybrid ministry with in-person and virtual technology. Will you be offering any opportunities to learn more about actually doing virtual technology so that some of the churches that might be stymied by it might have an opportunity to grow in it a little bit, understand it better, and not be so, whoa, we're not doing that, because it may be a way for them to grow. I've heard stories of churches who have received more membership, just like you shared, and actually more contributions throughout the pandemic because they have gone ahead and been out there.
Greg, that's a great question. If I can figure out, I don't know if I can or not. I just in chat, and I'm not really good with stuff like this. I just put our scattered church website information there for you. And we've got a couple of webinars in there. One that Bruce Reyes-Chow did for us on hybrid, how to do virtual worship. And then we have something else that Worship Times did for us. And we're in conversation right now with someone else. And I'm so sorry, Greg, but my brain has forgotten his name. And looking at, and we're gonna have to pay him to do this, but looking at, he's Presbyterian, and he's offered to help us with some more webinars on virtual worship and the whole notion of hybrid worship, in person and virtual, and what that's going to look like. So we're going to keep posting to this website, so you're free to use anything on the website that's going to be helpful to you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And we'll keep updating you. Yeah. And then in terms of evangelism, a couple things. One of the things I heard from a Presbyterian exec, and I always respect Presbyterian execs, Larry, and I had no idea what he was going to say to me when he reached out. He said, I want to talk with you about this evangelism resource. And I don't know, my first inkling was, oh my gosh, we did something wrong. But he said, I really like it. And I said, why? He said, it's Presbyterian. he said, I think Presbyterians can get our heads around this because it's all about practices that take us deeper into our relationships, and it includes justice. He said, I'm so excited to use this. Another story is a church that just started realizing that they had to be more involved in their community. And so they started in the midst of the pandemic, just a conversation with the school near them about what do your teachers need? What do you need? How can we help during this pandemic? And then there were a variety of things that the school needed. One was supplies, because a lot of the kids weren't able to get the materials they needed for virtual school. And the teachers were trying to figure out, well, how do I pay for this? So the church came alongside and was able to do that for them. And the church was also able to do some like drive-by celebrations to affirm teachers and stuff like that. So, and I know that now that the school's gonna, I mean, it's out now. I'm teleworking in Georgia, but they're gonna have once they're back in person in the fall, they're gonna continue to renew that relationship. And they've met so many people online who've now started through that relationship with the school, that have started attending their worship services online. So we'll see how that translates once they start opening up to in-person worship. Hey, Letty.
Hi. Just out of curiosity, I follow the Christian Left online, and the work of Reverend Mark Sandlin, who is a PCUSA pastor in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I'm lucky enough that my church service on Sunday gets out early enough that I can then go and participate in his services online. He has a very strong focus on social justice, has partnered with Reverend Barber and Doug Paget, and is part of the, what's the name? It's a really good podcast. I can't remember the name. It's on every day. But at any rate, so the kinds of things that he's doing and his congregation is doing, even during the pandemic, have really interested me a lot, but they're incredibly bold. And are you familiar with that ministry at all?
I'm familiar with the Poor People's Campaign,
Right.
but not with that ministry. No.
Okay. Okay. I just wondered because he's very engaged in practical theology, like taking, you know, his theology, which is admittedly extremely liberal, and a lot of Girardian influence from Rene Girard, and puts that into his sermons, but also within his activism within the community. And in Greensboro, North Carolina, that's not an easy row to hoe. So I just was curious because I keep hearing about all these disparate groups that are doing things. And I wonder about how they get coordinated together, because, you know, our own presbytery has begun an initiative. You've got Sandlin's work in Greensboro, which is part of the larger Christian Left, and Politics Now, speaking of theology and politics. And then what you're talking through the PCUSA. And then I was and people are tired of hearing me talk about this, but I went to GA, the virtual GA, which was in the midst of Black Lives Matter, the protests in Louisville at the time, on the very day that we adjourned, questions about race and poverty that were brought up and were tabled during that time. So I'm kind of, I guess I'm kind of being a little bit of a rabble rouser here, but I just don't understand why, when we are so separate and we come up with all these great ideas, why we can't figure out how to coordinate them better and to work together as one, as opposed to being in little places over there.
That's a very good question, and I believe we're working on it. One of the things I didn't mention is the Preston Mission Agency right now is in the midst of what we call a vision implementation process. Since November, we had these listening sessions with leaders from all over around the world, the country, within the denomination, around Matthew 25 and what does it mean to really own Jesus's words about the least of these, and to be a part of that kind of movement. And we've just entered into what we're calling now a re-envisioning phase. It's going to go through August, where we're really going to be re-envisioning how we do our work. And a part of that's going to be how we're connecting to others and how we're doing the very thing that you're talking about. And then in the fall, it's going to be rebuilding, which is restructuring. And my hope and my prayer is that it will truly be a restructuring, and we will look very different, and we will be able to be as nimble as possible, and we'll be connected in many more ways to people within the church, but beyond the church for this important ministry. So we're in the midst of hopefully making that work and work better, because one of the things we know is we don't even collaborate well in the agency. So what does it look like to really have a structure that's going to enable us to do this ministry and to do it in partnership and to do it well? And a part of evangelism is let people know it's what it means to follow Jesus. This is how you live. This is how you work. This is how you serve. This is how you're willing to die so that others can live and you can live as well. Yeah. So thanks. We're in the midst of that. So keep us in your prayers.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We have a geriatric 14-year-old dog who's been coming up to me. So now she's back over here. So she's in the one panting. If you could hear panting. Yeah. So bless her heart, she's at the end. It's like we just, I was telling my oldest daughter yesterday, I can't go through this again. She's just lovely. We've had her and just love her to pieces and caring for her back ends going out. It's like, told my daughter, said, I've said this over and over. I will never do this again. I will never let another creature into my heart, knowing that it's going to break my heart wide open. So that's kind of where I am now, but I know I'll get another creature. So yeah, she was just panting on me a little while ago. So I don't know if you heard that or not. So it's part of life happening as you do ministry by Zoom. Yeah. Part of what I think is if the church could love people the way Jane loves people. Jane's our dog. Man, it would be a different place. It's amazing how well she can love all people. Doesn't matter. Even the UPS guy that comes, even the people that come to service something in the house, she's just, you got to keep her away from them. All she wants to do is lick them. Yeah. I know this was supposed to be 30 minutes. I don't want to go longer, but just appreciate y'all, Larry, and I'm grateful you asked me to do this. Hopefully this has been helpful. Love to do it again. Whenever we can meet in person, would love to come be with y'all. Had just a tremendous time with y'all in I think it was a monastery something like that.
That was a retreat center, wasn't it, Naomi?
Yeah, retreat center. Yes, that's it. Yes.
Well, we'll do that again at some point. Anybody have any last questions for Ray before he leaves us? All righty, Ray, thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Well, thank you. And part of what gives me hope is just being in relationship with y'all. So keep it up. Keep up the good work. And we'll just keep us in your prayers. We're going to have a new structure in the fall. And hopefully it's going to be a structure that's going to really serve us and the church well and the world well. So, yeah, lots of work to do.
All right, well, Godspeed, friend. Thank you so much.
All right. Hey, good to be with y'all.
Thank you, Ray.
Bye now. Anybody have anything else they need to shout out about before we go?